What's up, my friends? Welcome back to another video, and today let's talk about part 8, I believe, part 8 of the Disney Medley Breakdown series. So glad to have you back here today. We've already talked about the core sections of the orchestra, so now we're going to be talking about the actual doublings, some of the layering tools that we used here in the arrangement to kind of get a slightly different texture, different timbre, as compared to just the regular unison lines that you might hear on the instrument themselves, right? So before we really get into the nitty gritty of that, I've kind of pulled up some examples. But before we do that, I want to give you my orchestration essentials guide. In case you don't have that yet, it's totally free, and it goes over my 5-step process of how I like to approach an orchestral arrangement from start to finish. It really takes you through like the mentality of an orchestrator, in my opinion, and how I personally like to approach it. So all the way from like the initial sketch of how you want to set up the arrangement, what kind of instruments you want to include from a kind of a holistic perspective, then drilling down into the details. It's all outlined there. I want to give that to you totally free, so just click the link there. It'll take you straight there. You can download it as my gift to you today. So without further ado, let's kind of dive in. As you can see here in Logic, I've kind of written down 6 different combinations, some examples of some layering that I've done here in this arrangement. And don't get me wrong, I love hearing, certain instruments on their own. Like maybe it's a violin section and it sounds really beautiful because it has such a natural, passionate sound. But sometimes you do want to enhance and augment the existing texture to make it even fuller or introduce a slightly different color. And so, none of these combinations are super out there and super unique, but they are super effective and used a lot for a reason. So the first one I want to share is the violins, flute, and a vocal in Go the Distance. So let me go there first. Right here. Actually, let me just double check here. This key switch for the strings should be on C0. Let me just make sure it's on legato. There we go. Alright, so let's hear that again. We're going to zoom in a little bit here, make sure that we just hear that part, but we'll just hear these instruments alone. So here's the violins, then the flute is over here, right there, and then the vocal is, let me find it here, I believe it's this angelic one right here. Let's see. So you hear how the violins and the solo female vocal, they're in the same octave singing in unison, but the flute is an octave above. Now I could have used the piccolo there instead of the flute, but the flute has a slightly rounder tone to it, right? A little more breathy. So I kind of like the more subtle nature of that flute. Also notice the balance here is not overwhelming in favor of the flute because the entire string section is multiple players. So naturally they're going to be louder. And then in terms of, the reasoning for the vocal there, I just, before this, I didn't have any vocals. So if you listen to this, it's just violins, right? So the flute gives us a bit of breathiness and air, but the vocal literally adds a human element. So that's kind of the first instance there. In terms of like the actual timbre, like how I would describe it, I would say the flute, in addition to the violins, creates a creamy texture, whereas the violins themselves creates a nice, lyrical, silky texture. I think the flute adds a bit of cream to it, so I really like that. And then, Can You Feel the Love Tonight? So a similar idea, just the violins and the flute this time without vocal doubling in unison or anything. Sounds like this. Right, so here's the violins on their own. And here's the flute on its own. Together. And these are both from Cinematic Studio Series, by the way, so CSS and CSW. Right. And then in context, the flute just helps it sing forward a little bit more. The violins have a very classic feel, but the flute just enhances the texture slightly more. Makes it more buttery and creamy like we talked about. Then in the next section, now the melody is going to be transferred to the horns, the trumpet, and the flute. So let's solo that up. There's the flute. Then we have the trumpets. This is from Cinebrass, by the way. And then here's the horns on the left. So I kind of put the trumpets on the right side, like panned it right, horns on the left, flute in the middle. And then just the flute there to end off the passage. So let's hear that in context. And yeah, kind of the reason I chose the brass lead there is because I wanted the contrast with the strings. You know, the strings we're doing Can You Feel the Love Tonight, very passionate, very romantic. And then Let It Go is a little more declamatory, and Elsa's really making a stand for herself. So the brass, you know, the horns and the trumpets really give it that military almost feel to it. Really makes it a strong, emphatic touch. So that's kind of the reasoning there. And then the flute just softens it up just a little bit there. You can't really hear the flute, but it's more like you can feel the flute in addition to those instruments. Let's move on to the next one. So for the first time in forever, this one is talking about the actual harmony here. So the ostinato stuff that's happening. So let me just play this part here. So here's the strings. Right? So the violins one is doing the busiest stuff on the top. Like that's actually playing the triplets, whereas the lower parts are doing the and in the winds I have a very similar thing going on in the Hollywood Woods 2D staccato. You can hear that accenting those stabs along with the lower strings. And then finally the piano, I am doing the more triplet stuff, so you can hear that in there as well. So I think that combination gives it kind of a light flavor. That piano especially lines it up, and then in context with the percussion as well. So percussion-wise, we have, you know, the snare drum and the shakers as well. So that sets up a really nice backdrop for this solo violin. Really produces the excitement and allows the violin to shine on its own. Believe me, I talked about this before, but you know, trying to get that Joshua Bell violin to actually sound convincing, somewhat convincing, took quite a few hours. So I think it was worth it. I really enjoyed doing that because I never really took the time to seriously learn the library, and I was thinking like I might as well learn it. This is the perfect opportunity to just put it in this medley. So why not? And then the next one, When You Wish Upon a Star. I kind of just layered in the violins, but also brought in the piccolo this time because I actually wanted that super high texture and I wanted the piccolo to kind of cut through. So let's have a listen to that. Here's the piccolo. And then the violins one. We'll just solo that up. Here, they're on the same octave there. Tremolos and the violins there, but let's hear that one more time. So. And here it comes. In addition, I have other violins going there too. But so the piccolo is relatively light because there's only one player, but it just helps the violins gives the violins slightly more definition, helps them cut through the mix a little bit more. It's all little touches here. You notice that I'm not making the piccolo super loud or anything because it naturally is a very loud instrument to begin with. So in combination with all the other ensembles happening, you know, it's not going to be that loud. It's going to be relatively balanced. And then finally, and one of my favorites is the cellos and the bassoon. So this is in the second half here of The Beauty and the Beast. So have a listen to this. So here we just have the cello happening. I have CSS and soaring strings cello layered in together. And the second half, I wanted to bring in the bassoon to augment it even further. You can hear that warmth in the bassoon there, right? Here's the bassoon on its own. Okay, let's hear that in context. So just cello here. And now include the bassoon. So even warmer. And the violins are supposed to be legato, not tremolos, but anyway, don't worry about that. So anyway, those are kind of some of the combinations that I want to share with you. I could probably come up with a few more, but in general, the way I personally like to approach combinations is to simply augment or enhance an existing texture. If I want to add some extra interest, or maybe I actually want to bring forth a line a little bit more. Maybe I wanted to make it a little bit stronger. So I didn't necessarily cover, you know, layering within the same section, like violins 1 and violins 2 playing in unison together. Like obviously that will make the melody stronger and make it louder as well. But I wanted to show some of the other combinations of different instruments coming together, you know? So that's kind of the idea. And when it comes to combinations and layering in yourself, I would definitely encourage you to experiment and have fun with it, because there really is no rules. And when it comes to sample libraries especially, you really have free reign to do whatever you want, right? So I kind of talked about in a different video how, you know, a real orchestra, it's very, very expensive, and you're hiring not only the players, but the studio space and everything. So the opportunity to try things out within the session is probably not as good of an idea as doing it within your mockup itself, you know? And if you want some business tips on that type of thing and some real life experience, check out Anne Catherine Dern's YouTube channel. She recently talked about how in a session, she had a really high trumpet part, and then she had to drop that down an octave for the third trumpet, I believe it was, and that instantly solved the tuning issues there. So very interesting little tidbits you learn from real life, but when it comes to mockup blend, you can do whatever you want, so you can really have fun with it. But anyway, hope that kind of makes sense. Hope that gives you a couple of ideas. And if you're interested in, again, learning my step-by-step kind of mockup process and how I put together a complete arrangement orchestration, then I want to give you that Orchestration Essentials Guide. Again, it's completely free. Just click the link below to check it out. And it's very digestible, very easy to read. I want you to have it. It's my gift to you for checking out this video today. So thank you so very much. I really appreciate it, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care, my friend. Bye-bye.